There are only a few days left, and while the world remains distracted, run over by headlines, notifications, and urgencies that no one can quite explain, something silent and ancient approaches the sky this coming August 12th, a total solar eclipse. Not a common eclipse, one of those that goes unnoticed between one conversation and another. A total eclipse. One of those rare phenomena that humanity contemplates only a few times throughout an entire lifetime, and which has always, without exception, been viewed by ancient civilizations as a definitive marker. A turning point. A sign that something was ending so that something else could begin. The Babylonians recorded eclipses on clay tablets. The Mayans built entire observatories to predict them. The ancient Chinese believed it was the moment when the sky would open and listen. Not because they were superstitious, but because they saw what almost no one sees anymore. That the cosmos does not move by chance. That when the sun and the moon align in this specific way, with this unlikely geometry, something within the very structure of time seems to open up. And if you have made it this far, if you are watching this video right now, it is because somewhere inside you, there is already a quiet perception that this moment is not like the others. You may not know how to explain it. Perhaps you have no name for it. But some part of you has already realized that the days are different, that the air feels denser, that decisions you had been putting off have started to hurt more, that matters which seemed dormant have returned without warning. It is no coincidence, it is the field intensifying. It is the proximity of an event that even before it happens in the sky has already begun to happen within you. And most people still haven't noticed. They will continue not to notice. They will wake up on the 12th, look at the sky out of curiosity, think it is beautiful, and go on with their lives without understanding that a window was opening there. One that only opens once every so often. You don't have to be one of those people. And that is precisely why this video exists, so that the next few minutes can prepare you for what is coming, not with cheap mysticism or empty predictions, but with clear and honest guidance on how to traverse a period that, whether you believe it or not, has already begun to traverse you. Pay attention to the days leading up to the 12th, because if you observe with honesty, you will realize that something has already begun. A restlessness that is hard to name, a fatigue that won't go away no matter how much you sleep. Or the opposite, a stubborn insomnia, with your brain switched on, racing through random thoughts at 3 in the morning. Vivid dreams, strangely detailed, featuring people you haven't seen in years. Old memories returning for no reason, almost as if your mind were rummaging through drawers to find something it had forgotten, it tucked away. Emotions that seemed resolved resurfacing with disproportionate intensity. A sadness without an address, a brief sharp anger over small things, a strange urge to cry while watching a mundane scene in a movie, old conversations echoing in your head in the middle of the night. Doubts you thought were buried asking to be revisited. Issues you pushed under the rug starting to make a noise you can no longer ignore. This is not madness. It is not your fatigue. It is not your anxiety. It is the natural effect of a pre-eclipse period, when energy intensifies and everything that was postponed, silenced, or repressed demands space to be acknowledged. The body knows before the mind does, and the body has already begun to signal. You may have also noticed an almost physical urge to withdraw from the noise, to cut down your time on social media, to cancel commitments for no apparent reason, to be in more silence, to be alone and be unable to explain why, to stare out the window doing nothing and feel that that precisely makes sense, while a pile of tasks awaits you. Do not resist this. Do not fight this withdrawal. It is not weakness. It is not laziness. It is not depression. It is not a failure of productivity. It is preparation. It is your inner self trying to hear what the bustle of daily life won't let you listen to. It is the soul asking for a smaller, quieter space where it can put itself in order before the sky opens. Accept these quieter days as an invitation to observe, not as a problem to be solved. Reduce whatever you can reduce. Say no to invitations you know won't do you any good. Sleep a little earlier, even if just one night a week. Eat real food, warm food, food that was made with care. Walk down the street without headphones at least once a day. Let the world in, and let yourself listen to what is being said from within. Because what is being said, once heard, will change the way you navigate the 12th. And there is a subtle difference worth naming here, because many people confuse it. What is happening in this pre-eclipse period is not a crisis, even if it looks like one. A crisis has the tone of an emergency, of things breaking. What is happening now has a different tone. It is the tone of things organizing themselves from within so that a new configuration can form. If you look from the outside, it looks like confusion. If you look from the inside with attention, you realize there is a silent intelligence behind it all, rearranging the internal furniture, making space, throwing away what won't fit into the next phase. You don't need to rationally understand what is being moved. You only need to stop fighting the process. Trust that the body knows what it is doing. Trust that the mind, when it slows its pace, is not failing. It is simply shifting gears to traverse terrain that requires less speed and more attention. And if you manage to reach the 12th without having run over this withdrawal with caffeine, excessive work, or digital distraction, you will perceive totality in a completely different way. You will arrive there with your inner ears open, and you will hear what most people too busy will not be able to hear. And when the eclipse happens, you will realize something that perhaps you are still trying to deny. You already know. Deep down, you already know what change you need to make. You know what that decision is, the one you have been putting off for months, perhaps years. You know which habit needs to end, which conversation needs to happen, which path needs to be started, which bond needs to be transformed or brought to an end. What is missing in your life is not clarity. It never was clarity. What is missing is choice. And here, a moment of brutal honesty is warranted, the kind we rarely find in videos like this. Most people spend years, entire decades, convincing themselves that they are still not sure, that they need to think more, that they need to wait for the right moment, that they need to gather more information. And time passes and life slips away, and what should have been started long ago remains postponed under the elegant guise of prudence. It is not prudence, it is fear, and fear is legitimate. No one is here to judge your fear, but it cannot continue to be the pilot. And the problem with keeping 5, 10, 15 desires scattered at the same time is that your energy is divided among them all, and none of them gets off the ground. You want to change jobs, you want to study that new thing, you want to improve your body, you want to learn that language, you want to end that relationship, you want to start that project, you want to leave that city, you want to get closer to that person, and by trying everything at once, you achieve nothing. This is not a lack of willpower. It is energy mathematics. The eclipse is an invitation for you to do the opposite of that, to define a direction. Just one, the most urgent one, the one that screams the loudest, the one you know will be too late if you delay another year, and to make within yourself before the 12th a concrete commitment to that direction. Not a wish, not a vague intention, a commitment, written in a notebook, spoken out loud alone in your room, told to someone who will hold you accountable, marked on your body in some symbolic way. Choose the format that makes sense to you. But choose, because vague decisions do not survive the intensity of what is to come. They dissolve at the first obstacle. But clear decisions, yes, those gain strength. They gain body. They gain roots. They start to pull you instead of you having to push them. And in the months following August, when exhaustion hits, when doubt returns, when the world tries to fit you back into your old shape, it will be this commitment, written, spoken, marked, that will remind you why you started. Before we get there, use the days that remain. Do not waste this short and precious time. And here I must be specific because generic guidance helps no one. Finish what can be finished. That task dragged out for weeks, resolve it, even if done poorly. It is better to have something completed imperfectly than something pending perfectly in your head. That message you didn't answer out of fear, answer it. Even if the reply is short, even if you don't have the exact words, write it, send it. That difficult conversation you've been putting off with someone important, have the courage to have it. It doesn't need to be a prepared speech. It doesn't need to be the perfect moment, because the perfect moment never comes. It needs to be real. It needs to be honest. It needs to happen. That object left as a memory of a phase that has passed and continues to take up space. Decide what to do with it. That contract that has lost its meaning, end it, or at least write the email initiating the process. That bond that has turned into an obligation and no longer has any affection behind it, have the courage to recognize it, even if it is not yet the time to act. There are 4 categories of pending matters that tend to weigh heaviest in these moments, and it is worth naming each one. Relational matters, which are unspoken conversations, unforgiven slights, unexpressed gratitude, truths that remained stuck in your throat. Practical matters, which are material commitments, contracts, obligations, concrete tasks you put off and which weigh a little more on your conscience each week. Mental matters, which are unfinished projects, ideas you never put on paper, decisions left in limbo that occupy cycles of thought every day. And energetic matters, which are bonds, environments, habits, automatic submissions to things you would not choose today but continue to fuel out of inertia. You don't need to enter the eclipse with everything resolved. That would be impossible, and that is not the idea. But you do need to enter with less. Each open issue is an invisible thread tying you to the past. The more threads cut by the 12th, the more lightness to traverse the totality, and the more internal space to receive whatever may appear. It is not about perfection. It is about arriving cleaner. It is about entering that shadow with as little weight as possible, so that when the light returns, you have the strength to reach for whatever it brings. And now it is worth understanding clearly what makes this eclipse so different from the others. Perhaps you have heard of annular eclipses, those in which the moon does not completely cover the solar disk and leaves a ring of fire visible all around. They are beautiful, they are impressive, but they are of a different nature. This one in August is not one of those. It is a total solar eclipse, the most impressive kind that exists, and the rarest and the most powerful from an energetic point of view, as well as from a visual one. In the regions within the path of totality, the moon will completely cover the sun's disk, and the day will turn into something that language has real difficulty describing. There are 4 phases in this type of phenomenon, and it is worth knowing each one. First, the first contact, when the edge of the moon begins to touch the sun. It still looks like an ordinary day, but if you use proper protection and look at the sky, you notice a small, almost discrete bite on the edge of the solar disk. Then comes the partial phase, which is slow and subtle, but in which the daylight begins to change its quality. It doesn't get darker exactly, it gets stranger. Shadows become sharp in a different way. The leaves of the trees, if you look at the ground, begin to project dozens of small crescents instead of round spots of light. The animals begin to notice. Birds get confused, dogs become agitated, insects stop. Then, minutes before totality, everything accelerates. The temperature can drop a few degrees in a matter of minutes. The wind changes direction. The sky on the horizon turns orange, like a 360-degree sunset. And then comes totality. And here, language begins to truly fail. The light doesn't disappear like at night. It dies in a way that doesn't belong to any hour of the day. The sky darkens into a deep blue, almost violet shade. Stars reappear. Venus and Jupiter become visible. And around the moon, shining with an intensity that almost no one is prepared to see, the solar corona emerges, that silvery halo of plasma that is only revealed when the sun hides completely, a thing that no telescope can show at any other moment of the year, a thing that only exists for the human eye during those few minutes. Those who have witnessed a totality speak of it as an experience that divides life into before and after, not because of the spectacle itself, although the spectacle is supernatural, but because of the unusual silence that settles upon those who observe, a silence that is not an absence of sound, but the presence of something greater. People in open fields often cry without knowing why. They fall to their knees. They go quiet. And when the light returns, some say the feeling is that of having received information that did not pass through words. Nothing needs to be explained for you to understand. It is as if, for a few minutes, the sky had told you something in another language, and you had understood it anyway. And if you are not in one of the regions within the path of totality, Do not think that the eclipse passes far from you. It passes through you just the same. The visual effect is a privilege of a geographic strip, but the energetic effect respects no borders. Wherever you are on the planet during those hours, something in the field shifts. Sensitive people often report a feeling of heaviness in the environment. Ordinary people, who aren't even paying attention to the phenomenon, become more irritable or more introspective without knowing why. Babies cry more. The elderly grow quieter. Domestic animals change their behavior. This is not suggestion. It is an observation recorded in every eclipse since there have been people paying attention. And it means one important thing for you. You don't need to travel to see the totality to go through this event with awareness. You need to be awake internally on that day. You need to stop for a few minutes, even if only mentally, even if in the middle of a workday, and recognize that something is happening. If you can, at the time of the eclipse in your region, take a few minutes to be silent. Close your eyes. Breathe. Don't perform any complicated ritual. There's no need. Just be present. Let your body receive what is in the air. If you are in an open area and it is safe to observe, with proper protection, observe. If you are indoors, just stop and afterwards write down what you felt, nothing more. And it is precisely during this period around the eclipse that you need to start observing your own life more closely, because signs will begin to appear, and it is easy to mistake a sign for a coincidence when you aren't paying attention. Pay attention to the unexpected invitations that appear over the next few days, to the reunions that seem to arise out of nowhere with people you haven't seen in a long time who return to your field for some reason that isn't yet clear, to conversations that open up a topic you didn't expect to touch upon, often spoken by someone who has no idea what they are stirring up inside you, to ideas that arrive suddenly while you are having a coffee or walking down the street thinking of nothing, ideas that have no logical origin and yet settle with a strange clarity, to the opportunities that knock on your door with a synchronicity almost too strange to be random, job offers at unexpected times, trips proposed by friends, doors that had been closed for a long time and begin to open without any effort on your part. None of these signs are random. They are the visible tips of movements that had already been forming for some time, inside and outside of you, and that now find a favorable energetic context to manifest. And there is an important difference that needs to be stated. A sign is not just anything that happens. A sign is something that happens with a specific quality of fit, something that answers a question you had been asking, even if you hadn't formulated that question out loud. You had been thinking about changing fields, and you receive a proposal from someone who didn't know about your plans. You had been in doubt about a person, and that person appears in 3 different contexts in the same week. You had been thinking about taking better care of your health, and someone out of the blue gifts you a book exactly about that. A sign is recognized by the echo. It echoes something that was already inside. Do not discard what seems small. A brief message, a name that reappears, a book that falls off the shelf, a phrase heard in passing while in line, a sudden desire to change something small in your routine. These are the threads that, if you follow them, will lead you to where you need to go. And it is also important to say the opposite, so as not to fall into a trap. Do not force an interpretation. Not everything that happens during this period is a sign. If you start reading meaning into every red light, every delayed message, every passing cloud, you will get lost in the symbology and won't see what is essential. The criterion is the echo. If it echoed something deep within you, it is worth paying attention to. If you had to force the reading to find meaning, it is probably not a sign. The eclipse does not manufacture these signs. It merely amplifies your perception of them. And if you are attentive, you will see that many of them were already there before August began. You just didn't have the eyes to notice. But it must be made clear because this cannot be misunderstood in any way. Each person will experience this eclipse in a different way. There is no universal experience. There is no single script that applies to everyone, and anyone who promises you that is selling you a pretty illusion. Some people will feel a profound sense of closure, as if a long cycle, something of 5, 7, 12 years, were finally coming to its natural end. And they will perceive this with a curious mix of relief and melancholy, because what comes to an end is not always bad. And the relief of dropping something heavy doesn't always come without a longing for who we were while we carried it. Others will notice opportunities opening up, doors that had been closed for a long time beginning to creak and show cracks, a professional invitation, an affectionate proposal, a financial window, a chance to resume something that seemed lost. Others will receive a sudden clarity, an understanding that wouldn't come no matter how hard they forced it, and that now arrives almost by accident, in the middle of a shower, walking down the street, looking out the window. Suddenly, something that had been scrambled for months organizes itself into a single mental sentence, and you stand there understanding, without needing to explain it to anyone. Others will feel a new direction, still blurry, a call to go down a path that previously seemed impossible. Not a ready-made certainty, but a sense of direction, that there is one side of the map to follow and another to leave behind. And some will simply contemplate the phenomenon, live the day like any other, find it beautiful, take a photo, and move on with their lives. And that is also fine. No one here will tell you there is a wrong way to experience it. What needs to be clear, absolutely clear, is that the eclipse will not create a personal path for you. It is not an oracle. It is not a magic formula. It will not hand you a new life on a silver platter while you keep doing everything the same. What it does is reveal, with more force and sharpness, the direction you have already been building, consciously or unconsciously over the last months and years. If you have been planting silence, you will reap clarity. If you have been planting distraction, you will reap amplified confusion. If you have been nurturing your bonds, you will reap encounters. If you have been neglecting them, you will reap absences. The sky does not decide for you. It mirrors. And that is why the true work has always been in your hands, has always been in your ordinary days, has always been in the small choices of every day. The eclipse only places a magnifying glass over what already exists. And for that reason, perhaps the most important point of all that has been said so far is this last one. Totality lasts only a few minutes. Depending on the region, between 2 and 6 minutes, that's it. The eclipse itself is a brief event, almost insignificant when measured by the clock. But what it inaugurates is not. The decisions you make before the 12th, and especially the attitudes you adopt in the days and weeks immediately following, that is what will reverberate through the months ahead. The event in the sky is not the climax of the story. It never was. It is the opening. It is the blank page after a heavy chapter. It is the gate that opens to a path that still must be walked with your own feet. The true transformation does not happen during the minutes when the sun vanishes. It happens when the light returns, and you must decide what to do with it. Whether you will resume exactly the same routine as before, the same schedules, the same habits, the same escapes, the same ties that no longer serve you, the same thoughts spinning in circles, or if this time you will honor the commitment you made to yourself in the days leading up to this event. And there is a specific window which almost no one takes advantage of, which is the first 72 hours after totality. During this period, the body is still permeated by what was experienced. The mind is still more permeable than usual. The old patterns have not yet returned with full force. It is a window of short, precious plasticity, and if you use it with awareness, it can mean a real turning point. If you waste these 72 hours going back to autopilot, rushing to catch up on what was left standing the week before, burying yourself in your phone, drowning in commitments, you lose the most valuable chance of the entire cycle. Not because it never comes back, it always does, there are always other cycles, but because this specific opportunity, with this specific configuration, does not repeat itself anytime soon. So plan these 3 days with as little on your schedule as possible. If you can take time off work, do it. If you can cancel non-essential commitments, cancel them. Reserve space to walk without a destination, to write, to talk to someone you trust, to sleep more, to eat slowly, to take long showers, to be in silence. It is not laziness. It is not escape. It is the only way to let what was moved settle within you before the dust of daily life covers everything up again. And there are 3 attitudes that separate those who just watch the eclipse from those who truly pass through it. The first is to take the first step within the next 72 hours. It doesn't matter the size of the step. It could be a phone call, a message sent, a registration made, something thrown away, an appointment scheduled. something concrete, visible, in the world. Because decisions that stay only in your head dissolve, but decisions that become a physical gesture take root. The second is to write in a notebook, in a file, in a place you will return to, what you felt and decided during this period. Not to post, not to show off, just for you. Because in the following months, when daily life tries to convince you that it was all a passing exaltation, it will be this record that reminds you of the truth. And the third is to accept that the change starting now will not be linear. There will be days when you feel like you are going backward. There will be weeks when your old version will try to return. There will be conversations where people you know will try to fit you back into the old mold. This is not failure. It is just the process. What changes with an eclipse is not you, it is the direction. And a new direction requires new steps every day for a long time, because the sky will do its part, and it will do it well. And your part, no one can do for you. The next few days are yours. What you do with them is yours as well. The days that follow, the months that follow, all of this remains in your lap, just as it always has. And when the light returns, on the 12th of August, after those few minutes in which the world seemed to stop breathing, may she find you a little lighter, a little more resolute, a little more whole than you were when you started watching this video. May she find you with fewer threads tying you to the past, with a commitment written down somewhere, with a named direction, with a courage you perhaps haven't felt in a long time, because it is not the eclipse that changes everything. It never was. It is what you choose to do with it, and that choice you can start making today.